Many animals have incredible ways of navigating, from jumping spiders that use beacons to pigeons that read the sun like a compass. The natural world is full of amazing examples of ways that animals find their way around. While these examples are interesting, none may be more surprising than the complex method that desert ants, Cataglyphus notus, use to find their way home after foraging for food. Desert ants live in a harsh environment. Most ants use a chemical trail to track where they've been and can thus follow the trail to get back home. However, desert ants cannot use this method due to the desert heat, which would quickly degrade a chemical trail. The desert ants also must get back home much quicker than a chemical trail would allow, since they can quickly overheat in the hot sun. In order to navigate, these desert ants have developed a method known as dead reckoning, also called path integration. In this method of navigation, two pieces of information are needed: the angle that the ant turns and the distance traveled. Humans have recorded the same information to perform dead reckoning as well, usually during maritime travel. This requires the use of a traverse board, shown here. On this board, two pegs were used to record the angle and the speed of travel over a known amount of time. This allowed sailors to predict their location based on adding up all of the vectors created from these distance and angle measurements. Here we see a desert ant coming out of her nest for the first time. Usually, these naive ants will take what are known as learning walks in order to become familiar with the environment around their nest. As can be seen here, ants on a learning walk will often perform turns known as pirouettes, where they turn back to look at their nest. Pirouettes are done in order to learn the ways back to the nest and become familiar with what the area around the nest looks like, since they do use some simple visual cues for navigation. It seems that during learning walks, desert ants may also use the Earth's geomagnetic field to navigate. However, this is not used later when the ant performs dead reckoning. After a few days of becoming familiar with the surroundings of her nest, the desert ant is ready to forage. Our ant friend must travel fast as to not stay in the heat for too long, and also must travel far as food can be scarce in the desert. This ant may travel up to a kilometer away from her nest to find food, so she must rely on dead reckoning to get back home as the nest will be well out of sight. In order to know where she is at all times, the desert ant can see patterns of polarized light in the sky. Humans cannot see this pattern, however insects are able to see it and use it as a sort of compass to keep track of what direction they are headed in. In order to track distance, the desert ant likely counts her steps and observes the visual flow around her. Visual flow is the experience of seeing the landscape move towards you as you move, thus allowing insects like the desert ant to sense how far they have traveled. Once food is found, since our ant knows where she is in relationship to her nest, she will take the fastest route back home in order to minimize time spent in the hot sun. But how does a simple desert ant brain with only around 100,000 neurons perform dead reckoning? In the central part of the desert ant's brain, there is an area known as the central complex. This area contains neurons that respond to polarized light, known as sky compass neurons, and those that respond to optical flow, known as optic flow neurons. Since the central complex has both pieces of information needed to perform dead reckoning, direction and distance, this is thought to be where dead reckoning is performed. As we can see, our ant friend has made it back to her nest, all thanks to her amazing ability to calculate her position through dead reckoning. Thank you all for watching.